very welcome to Goldsmiths. In my view, this is the kind of thing a university should be doing, is welcoming people from outside the actual academy, right? Because the knowledge in this room, right, is, well, exceeds, I would say, anything that's been written down in the books as yet.
Good morning.
Greetings.
And welcome.
That real sense of belonging. How I got involved or deciding upon the sound was because I didn't feel a sense of belonging, whether it was in my household, whether it was in my community, etc. And when I started attending sessions, I really felt like I connected, whether it was with the music, whether it was with the people, and I wanted to create that same kind of energy through playing the sound.
I think one of them is thinking about ways we can engage young people, particularly young Black people, young youths, because I feel like it's something that could be so beneficial to them, in this day and age with, the kind of music they listen to and young culture, pop culture. I think it's damaging in a lot of ways. So I feel like Sound System could not only counter that, but kind of teach them about where they come from, the history and the power that's innately inside them. Watching somebody kind of enjoying the music for the first time and thinking about what possibilities are beyond that. So,
for me, Sound System is all about community as well. But what motivates me the most is the fact that, as Judah said, it's conscious music. But for me, it being Black music primarily, it's Sound System dances are like one of the few places where I feel completely comfortable and I feel represented. Other than being like at a family cookout. For me, it's comparable to that, the sense of belonging and just absolute enjoyment. I've been going to Sound System dances for as long as I can remember, and it's still just completely euphoric. That feeling of having the bass shake your trouser legs and whatnot. It never changes for me, and yeah, I love it. I love that it's primarily Black music, not limited to, but in such a white-dominated country like the UK, for me, it provides that outlet and that sense of belonging.
I think something that motivates me within this scene and culture is just the feeling of being able to be free. I don't think there's any other, we play dub music, so I don't think there's any other genre personally for me that makes me feel as free as dub music. To go to a dance and kind of not care about what anyone is watching you or anything in the dance and just closing your eyes. I think that's just such a beautiful feeling. And just to go off what Daniela said, I think to see a younger Black generation and what that can do for them, I think that's just going to be so special.
One of my ambitions is to keep Sound System not as a was, but as it is. Like Sound System was this or Sound System was that. I think, really being able to maintain Sound System is, because if it continues, it will die out. As it is, and that legacy will be lost. So really being able to maintain Sound System is.
In terms of technology, I think, we play old school things. We still play CDs, vinyl, those kind of things, a mixture, but we still feel no way to play digital music. I feel like, music can be heard in so many different ways. Not everybody has access to vinyl, so you have to have it in a digital format for them to be able to play it.
Now it's the case of anyone can make a tune and then play it the next night or that day if you wanted to. For me, a massive part of Sound System culture has been that process of cutting dub plates. We mentioned Leon Chu earlier on, and in the last 2 years, because of COVID alone, the price of vinyl or whatever has gone through the roof, and that stopped a lot of dub plates being produced.
I'm very much in agreement with what you said about vinyl and playing vinyl and the importance of it. I think that vinyl in itself is a great way to kind of pass on traditions. It's just picturing that moment, thinking about it, when my dad passes on and like sitting in his room and going through all his boxes, every single one of those records has a story, you know, and every single one of those records it's a heirloom, you know, and it's things that will be passed on for generations. And I feel like with digital and CDs, you don't really have that same effect of being able to pass things on.
But even working as an engineer, like the amount of times I've showed up to a venue and people have thought I'm a cleaner, people have thought all sorts of stuff, and it's normal. Yeah. I would say the way I've overcome it is by taking space with other people who have had similar identities and similar experiences, and providing a space where people can learn. That's the most important thing to me with our sound.
As being like quite a minority within those spaces, I'm not a white man, basically. It's just like you have to constantly stand taller than like just with your whole being than any man would have to be able to be heard.
And there was a sound system event that was taking place, and when this was all being put in place, we saw that the lineup was just full of men, and we thought, you know, we'd just started kind of having discussions about us starting like a dub club in Coventry. So at the time, we didn't actually have plans of becoming a sound system, but we saw this lineup and thought this is an opportunity for us to go and play. And we actually got word that when we actually inquired about it, people were saying, like, who are these girls? Like, what is their experience? 3 women, that kind of thing. So, of course, these are from other veteran sounds in our city as well.
The greatest sabotage that we'll face is actually not having anywhere to play the music in the next 3 years. So 2 venues out of 3 that I've played in the last year have actually closed down. I speak with Jack, West Indian Centre, Leeds, Young Warrior, Mass, countless venues in Brixton. We will have loads of people will keep coming. There will be no problem to keep the message going. The actual thing will be not having a single place to play music above a certain decibel, past a certain hour, without having everyone have their identification given.
And I think with the venues, it is getting harder and harder. I think we need to be clever. And an anecdote on that is there's a sound system in France that puts the sound system on a canal boat, and when they get noise complaints, they just go down the river. And so I think we just have to start being, even if we find a bigger hall and we do bigger events, get more sound systems in and make more of a huge event of it so people all congregate to that one event. I think it's difficult at the moment because there is halls across the country.
Like, how can we start to think about ways to actually own space and dominate space for sound system culture to thrive? Because I feel like it's one of the biggest things we come up against is actually being able to hold space, and we often have to do it illegally or work around things, or, you know.
And of course, we can't control people and what they do. People have the freedom to do whatever they do, but it did make us think about how important it is to also be in a safe environment. And I guess it goes back onto the challenges of, like, there is an element of, like, preserving that safe space and making sure that when you go to a dance, you are getting that higher frequency. And
I feel like us as coming together now as a collective is really powerful. And so all I can say is that how do we keep it continuing? So, like, we've come together now, but how do we keep it continuing and keep it driving? Because, like you said, some elders ain't going to help us. A lot of the time when I'm asking family members from different parts of the community, and they say, Kat, where's the community? Where is this community that we keep speaking of? Do we actually help each other? Do we support each other? Because it's very difficult to get that help and the drive from the veterans sometimes. Especially, like, if you go to a DJ where we're from in Coventry, it can be very ego-based. I don't know about your guys' experiences, but it's difficult, and to find that knowledge is even harder, because sometimes it just can be a case of not being able to get that information to us, maybe.
Firstly, it's not for us to assist the elders. We have, as the young people, need to understand that we are the next generation, for them to realize that they need to assist us. But we always pay homage to the elders and the struggle of which they went through, because it enabled us to be here today. However, nobody lives forever. none of us are going to live forever. So what we have to do is to learn to appreciate one another and put into one another, because at the end of the day, if we weren't here, the work can't continue. And if sound system culture is so important to them, they would realize that we are so important to them, all right? It's very deep.
But it's up to us as sound systems and producers to make sure we keep the tradition. If we're not carrying on what was being made sort of now, and if we're changing due to trends and stuff just to attract other people, we're going to lose the message anyway, and the genre of music that we do, if we don't stick with it, basically.
So I think there's a thing of like keeping traditions and passing those on, but also creating traditions. And I think that's what we're doing as the so-called youngers.
Just, a question to the elders, because knowledge is power, right? So what are you doing to ensure that your knowledge, your skills, your insight are being shared and transferred to the younger generation? Like, I think, just kind of being really clear about that, because I think, a lot of us here have talked about the ways that we're invested in passing on and sharing the knowledge, but it's like, I feel like some of us have come up against it a bit with the elders, so maybe just kind of come in direct with something like that.
All here, as Julian said, so I'm not going to deliberate too much, to get your learning, get your knowledge, get your experience. And what we're trying to learn from you today is to understand the environment, the times that you all started, you all were operating, are still operating in many cases. Yep. We also want to know how you have innovated and adapted and forwarded on the technologies, the music that you've played, the people that you've worked with, the things that you've done.
When we were playing sound systems and building sound systems in the day, we were talking about lifting up some heavy boxes from the first floor up to the 21st floor. And we were doing that in the sun, the rain, the snow, and sometimes we never got paid. Sometimes there were no venues for us to play. We would go and create a venue, meaning we'd go and find a derelict house and we would lick down the door and go inside, string up the electricity from the street, and we would create a place where we could invite the public.
If anyone loves music enough to want to build a sound system and carry 1/2 ton boxes up and down stairs night and day, early hours of the morning, without sleep, little food, if you love it that much, do it. But if you think it's something that you can do because you can make some money or make some fame or smoke some weed, that's not my kind of sound system. My thing is just the love of music. And the more I do it, it brings me into myself as to who I truly am and what music really means to me. And it just completes what I want to feel for happiness. It completes my happiness.
My main reason is I love music. And the other reason is because at my time there was the sound system going around was challenging music, challenging sound system, which I didn't too much into. And used to go to those dances. I used to call them bull dance because it's plenty men, no women. So I started my music especially for playing lovers music. And there's a lot of women follow my sound at the time.
The reason why we started 80s Ladies, we were, in those days, youth clubs had a specific space for young women because, as you knew at the time, youth clubs were quite male-dominated. So they created a space where women could do what we wanted to do. So on this Wednesday night, we were batting around, we'd hear the elders speaking, which was great because some of them, their legacy still lives through our lives today. We found this turntable. But previous to that, I was taking records into school with the turntable console. It shouldn't have been in school, but I took it to school. And we used to have parties in C33 in Hornsey. So that's what I did. Got detention, but still brought the turntable in.
Well, I started playing sound system in a blues dance. We used to play a blues dance, from dance to dance to dance. And here the thing, I never do what Huno did do, you know. I did always play the B-side of the record. We never play vocal them time there. Because I was so much into the music, it's just the B-side we were playing. We used to get a name for it, you know. And we used to go around and we get a reputation because we was the only Indian sound I play reggae music, and then I get a fight over it, you know. And then throw we in a dance hall one time against another sound, and I never knew it was a clash. Lord.
Just to say a word about how we changed. I mean, we had to change. When we were working at Virgin, that was the time when CDs came in, and we were really violently opposed to, CDs. That wasn't really for us. But as my colleagues have said, it kind of like needs must. The market changes, the audience changes, and if you want to continue being relevant and to play to different audiences, you have to be adaptable.
During the years, you've all been upgrading, you know what I mean? Your amplifiers, they're only about 100 watt, 200 watt, but now, the power that some of these, amplifiers. So as it's been going along, we've all been upgrading the decks, I started with decks, I still got player decks, but it's a lot easier to carry a couple of CDs. I don't play a laptop, I won't go down that road now.
With the valve amp now, when we start, we'd have a little 30 watt going on into some 15s and playing, and then progress into a bigger power of, say, 400 watt valve. But when my brethren called Charlie, who was a kind of technical, wizard, and going into that side of things, building amps and so on, he comes along with a thing called module. This is 1978. And he said, it's a transistor and it is 200 watt. I said, no, man. Anyway, plug it on and we put on the 18-inch, and when we turn on that, we have to run. I said, wow, the sound out of it was amazing, So I said, well, bring me 3 of that. So we put these little modules now into the back of this amp case and string up and playing.
My sound hasn't really changed. I'm trying to keep it as traditional as possible. If anything, will be mostly with the amplifications, but even then, I'm trying to keep that. I mean, what used to be valve, I never did valve. I'll try and keep it as we have it today, but not the, management system, things like that. I want to play the traditional preamp, amps, less is more kind of thing.
I rebuilt with the assistance of many men in the sound world. During the lockdown, I rebuilt my set. I think, and I must say, for women, we don't have the physical strength that men have. And, even though you're getting up in age, so we have the set, but it's a challenge to lift it. Then you lift your records. By the time you get into the dance, you're kind of like half dead. Do you know what I mean? My intention is always to have vinyl. That's how Seduction City and our previous sound names has evolved. Young people came to our site in Carnival to see records spinning. We had children. Our children grew up seeing these records spin. So we've continued that, but it is a challenge.
You were speaking about sound systems earlier, about amplifiers and speakers and so forth, and turntables and vinyl and CD, mini disc. And it's at the end of the day, you build your sound system and you make it what you make it. Yeah. So I'm not going to knock anybody that builds a sound system and plays CDs, because that's how they feel that they should go ahead.
We're from a generation who built sounds, boxes, amps, wired it all together, put it all together, switched it on, and when it played, we made sure it dropped and dropped right. The younger generation, now when you look at them and see what they're doing, a lot of them are are not so much technically minded in that way of building something, but they will go out with their selection and play as DJs.
I think the gentleman over there, there is an absence of women behind the deck and in the dances. We receive music differently. If we're in the old dances, we felt that we were there. A lot of academics talk about how the presence of women in dancehall is key to a successful dance. I honestly believe that. But when you're clashing and they're talking about your underneath, how can you be there? Seriously, how can you be there? Hence why I made a decision to only play clean dancehall. Girls still want it. They still want to do dancehall, but they can't receive dancehall if someone is talking about their underneath. That's what the young people need to understand.
I just really want to reiterate what you're saying, my brethren. It's very important, family, that, you know, we're dwelling together, male and female. And I know that as Rastafari, right? When we look at His Imperial Majesty, he's dwelling with his Empress, Menem. So it's important that we're coming together as one. And I have to say the same. For the past 20, 30 years, I'm going to some of these sessions and it's just a lot of men. And I know that Neville alluded to this earlier. So it's us together, harmony together with our brothers and our sisters. And we're dancing together.
More women need to be inclusive in the reggae arena, dub arena, roots arena, more DJs, more singers, because I think it's too much male domination, which is causing an imbalance.
I just wanted to say, when I started, we was played in basically the school like classrooms. And then we moved on to parties, house parties, when people used to follow us from our schools, our friends, and played at house parties. But it was very difficult to actually play in clubs, especially with our colour. We would never be able to play there. So thankfully, church halls were the main sources of spaces to play in. You know, I remember listening to Shaka and Lord David at Caxton, at Church Hall. Whoppie King used to play in a place in Brixton Hill, Church Hall.
When I started to, when I joined, link up with Mark, with the Irish Sound, we was playing at places like Brixton Rec, you know what I mean? And when you're playing Brixton Rec, you know the vibe in a Brixton, say, yeah, you know what I mean? And people used to reach and we can go on till 6, 7 o'clock and all that kind of thing there. When that kind of left, and then we had to move to different places like Scala. We never liked Scala too tough due to the shape of the thing. And then from Scala now, Scala kind of like that done. And now it seemed like all the venues them seem to be like get licked down and whole heap of flats and all them things they start coming on them something there. So it's like the venues them are hard to come by right now. So.
And this is history, and now history keeps repeating itself. And now we find ourselves in these situations. We haven't got nowhere to even dance anymore. We ain't got no clubs. I mean, what is that about? And that is down to us as the generations to set the foundation, manage the foundation so that the generations that come after have something solid to move forward with.
What we have to convey, and it's partly our responsibility to make sure this lands, is that the next generation have to really kind of refer back to history. Necessity is the mother of invention, and that was really kind of the period that majority of us were coming through, was a very hostile environment whereby the inventiveness, the brilliance of the engineers, has been underplayed, in my opinion. So that needs to be shared, because I think it very much informs the way in which we all play, because it was a time of survival. It was a time of finding ways in which we could come together and enjoy. It was a time of being together. It was about the politics. It was about us coming together, enjoying the music, but it was also about survival, challenging, the authorities, but it was also about romantic love, which I think there's a massive absence in terms of the next generation, in terms of, the music being part of that.
Yeah, okay. I would expect that going forward, it'd be easier for young people to enter the game, enter the sound system fraternity. That's what I would like to see.
Everything for me at the moment is very throwaway. It's a very throwaway culture with some of the young people, and I wish they would stop to listen to what we've got to say. And so for me, it's about, us passing that knowledge on, and for the younger people coming to the elders and saying, well, okay, does this sound good? What makes a sound system sound good? And if we have that technical knowledge to be able to pass it on to the youths so that they can take it to the next level without damaging people, as you said.
Yeah, I would expect the youths of today to come good in their ambitions in music, to be more positive than negative, especially a lot of negative out there with this slackness stuff that they're going around thinking that is good, talking about killing each other, and that's not the way how we know things. We know things as being on a positive level and keeping it real, and that's what I expect them to do, to more or less keep the vibe still going, but learn from us as much as we can learn from them.
I think we, as the elder generation, has got a moral obligation to guide them and steer them. It doesn't make sense us saying that they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong. Ever since I was going to Jamaica from a young age, every stage show I saw, they had a platform for the up-and-coming artists. Every stage show, and this is how Jamaica produced so much reggae music, because they made space for their young and up-and-coming generation. They didn't shunt them. We can be accused of becoming dinosaurs. And we as elders need to grasp that change. We need to nurture them, because if we don't, we're going to be finished. The sound system culture is going to be finished. So we've still got obligation, even if we're not as active as we used to be, to guide the youths them. Have a whisper in their ears.
My sound is almost like a temple. It's a very special and a very holy almost piece of equipment, not even equipment, entity. And so therefore I'm very particular about what I play, how I play, and I believe that to be conscious. So I think, yes, I buy, music which is more recent, but I think at the essence of what I do, it's very much a conscious, traditional take on sound system.
The message is very important in terms of the music that we play as a sound. There's many different people involved with our sound, whether that be vocalists, whether that be selectors, and a lot of what we do is what the music we make, and the music we make has a message. So to be able to transmit that through our sound system in the way that we would like people to hear it is one of the most important things to us as a sound.
I think as a vinyl collector, all you'd have to do is flip through my record boxes to understand whether or not I properly understand the conscious aspect of the message of the music. I think it's all about vocal selection, what kind of message is actually being projected throughout the tune, and what the selector plays that really defines his understanding of the music form.
I would say the message for me was the key part of the music. I used to listen, and still do now, to every single tune before I even play it out there for the listeners to even hear it. I'd listen to everything. If I didn't understand something, I would ask my dad, what does that mean? What is he referring to? What is she referring to? So I feel like the message for me was even more key than the actual rhythm at the time. It was always listening to, okay, what does that refer to? What can I do to make others understand? And that was more for me, really. So I feel like the message was the key part in the music. Without that, in theory, what is the point kind of thing? I feel like the message was there.
Of course, reggae and dub music is all about unity and people coming together. That's great. But there's a community of people that aren't attending these dances as much, and that is a problem. And if you just see the unity, you're not seeing the whole picture. So where's the black people at these dances, basically?
And they need the music. They need the music. It's most beneficial for young black people.
At the end of the day, separate the two things. You do not have to be Rasta to own a sound system, and you do not have to own a sound system to be Rasta. So separate the two things. Everyone is welcome in the thing. Be true to who you are, and don't try and change certain historical elements. Accept that and look for a different thing if that is not for you. Some things are to be changed, and some things stay the way they are for the reason that they are.
Sound system history was prior to the Rastafari movement, as far as I was concerned. My first episode and connection with sound systems was when they used to play the imports from America. So my sound system experience was a love experience, solely a love experience, and also it emerged into a political existence. If I didn't have that basis as a woman, sound systems enabled me to meet other people, men, women, and it was a love experience. The Rastafari movement came much later. I was a teenager then. So that's all I've got to say on it. It was originally was a love experience.
Taking care of yourself and taking care of everybody around you, It is a conscious thing. It's a way of life. That is what we Rastafari we call it. You see, it's a whole heap of negative going out there, but the roots music that we listen to is part of our education as well. It is a struggle as music. If you learn where it come from. So Rastafari is about peace and love across the whole world, and there's one nation, every nation.
So, part of what Nzinga Sounds are doing is that we do a series of practical sessions. They may be DJ workshops, and we did one at the ICA some time ago. And we are in conversation with Morley College, looking into doing, I think, a term.
I think the other way to work intergenerationally is that when we are approached on Instagram or however we're approached, and young people are doing their academic work, is to make ourselves available.
Right, okay. I work with some young people, and some of them have a very troubled background. And as far as I'm concerned, there's those that are in secure units and various other institutions. And for me, I would like to be able to play the sound system to them, in these establishments, so that they can feel and understand where they're coming from and where they're going to.
When you say a safe space, what do you mean? A safe space?
A space in which people feel protected, safe, that they can be themselves, express themselves, enjoy themselves without fear of violence, without fear of repercussions, because that was what was coming up in our session. that there were people had faced violence, had faced being treated with discrimination in sound system space, and we want to preserve it as sacred.
Well, like I say, that the music that we play still, or I play, is Rasta music, culture, see? So we promote peace and love and culture music, and there's no violence or slackness. So people who come to hear, like Channel 1, Rasta sound, Shaka, and all the root sounds, we play culture. So hopefully they feel good in our space, and we don't promote anything else, no violence. So hopefully you'll feel good coming to the roots and culture dances of Rasta people and culture.
Not even the government can keep us safe. There's no safe space. It's up to the individual. We used to go into houses packed with 50 people, houses that are meant to have 10 people in them, and basements that with people's ceiling falling on each other to hear the music. There is no safe space except you have a regimental situation. If you're going to play music, people will come. There'll be bad eggs in the crowd, and something may happen. I don't see a question, how do you keep a safe space and that? You can do your risk assessment. You can make sure there's fire extinguishers, should there be a fire. You search people at the entrance so they don't carry weapons in the dance. That's all you can do. But people who really want to do that will do it, sound system-wise.
Can anybody tell me where there's anywhere safe? I mean, in general, let's face it, we live in the world that we live in. And if we're honest, we can't guarantee anybody's safety. At the end of the day, people make their choice where they want to go, where they think they might be safe. Now, you're not going to get a group of people that's going to go to a venue if they think that something might happen or they might feel discriminated against. So people in general know where they go, where they're going to be reasonably safe.
The sound, the set, the person that's controlling the mic, particularly at Carnival, we know the potential risks that are out there. Vulnerable women, people who've had too much to drink, and generally how they've shared with me, how they manage it is that they have to almost mobilize the crowd. So if they see a vulnerable woman, then the dance stops and they point out what the situation is and they get people to take care of. So it's self-policing, it's self-management, but it's being directed by the sound crew.
My main thought for the younger generation would just be to not think that you're ever inventing or reinventing the wheel. I think a lot of people come into a space and they're young and their head's full of ideas and they're like, I can do this, I can do that. But I think what's been really important to us is to always be in dialogue with people from other generations, older and younger, because everyone has different perspectives that, have value. In Boss, we've done interviews with Nzinga Sound, we've done interviews with Lady V, we've done interviews with people that have so much knowledge to pass on, and it's untapped, to be honest. Like, we've been speaking about how things aren't properly archived and documented, and I feel like spaces like this are a really good starting point to understand and reason with each other and respect the culture.
I think archiving records, the archiving of records is to play records. It kind of being looking at sleeves or looking at labels, that's one part of it, that's great. But I think to keep it alive, you need to hear it. It needs to be played.
So we have an expectation around the archives, and I think we need to be careful about that expectation because it's not always lived up to. And I'm not going to name any names, but we need to make sure that the archive can deliver, is effective, and knows what they're doing. Just about making the archive digital, plus all the flyers and all the stuff that we've collected over the decades. But we can't assume that because an organisation is set up to do something, that they have the capacity, the capability, and the ability to do what they're supposed to do.
There is archiving, that's I suppose documenting and keeping and registering. But it should be said that vinyl actually needs to be protected, like correct temperature and pressure and moisture to keep it going for a long time, because they do get, without you doing any damage to them, you could go in and find it overladen with moss that you have to clean. So it does need practical first and care. Temperature's right in the room, and so on, of course, and the rest don't make them dirty. So you have to wipe them and all that. Keep them clean, but temperature and pressure and time can defeat you. You can keep them as long as you want if you try hard. That's different to just archiving titles and digital reserves and all that.
You know, actually having these conversations, not being afraid to speak to our elders. I think that's another great point to kind of put forward. I mean, some of the stories and things that you guys can pass on is incredible. So I feel like even asking the questions, how do we do it? You know, what would you like us to do for the future? I think that's a great thing to put forward.
I like to see more integration between the young and the old. As a record collector, I have a vast collection, and I'm sitting there still wondering, who am I going to leave it to? My son is 22, he's got no interest in it. I actually, over my years, inherited about 4 or 5 record collections. And I would like to do the same with my collection, keep it complete and hand it down to someone who's got the positive vibes to keep carrying it on for the next generation. And I think the only way that's going to be achieved if the youngsters and the elders integrate. The youngsters have got so much to teach us and vice versa.
But, you know, the main reason why I wanted to build a sound system was because I recognised the value in the heritage. It's cost an arm and a leg to do so. It's a big commitment, you know, to move it from A to B, and the rest of it, getting people involved to actually make sure that it can get up and get taken down at the end of the night. There's a lot of time and energy that gets invested into it. So I feel, you know, that's all part of the culture that exists, and as long as you're putting the work in to maintain that authentic side of it, in terms of performance, in terms of going to the studio and, you know, recording dubs and keeping all of that side of it alive, it's bound to inspire a yet younger generation to do the same, and that's the aim of the game, I think.
I know club owners that literally tell me that if you're playing reggae, it's a no-no. So there is more to it. And the black youth of today are not in it because they see our struggles, and they do not want to go back down the same road. The white youths are into it because they do not have those struggles. The black youths do. So it's a quite clear what's happening now.
We know that sound system culture is very, very male-dominated. And I found it interesting that when the question was asked about what was actively being done to support young people within the next generation coming up, it was females that are actively doing something. The males, it was like, we want the young people to come to us and listen to what we're doing, and that's how we'll pass it on. But the females are actively going out for those young people.
You know, all the best to the younger generation, you know, because we're looking to UNO to carry it on. Mm-hmm. Without you, we can't carry on, can we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna, you know, when we get older, we can't move again, and UNO to carry it on, you know.